Hey everybody, it's Minius! After the new trailer-ish video shown at EA Play, a number of key BioWare staffers did a bunch of interviews with Mass Effect Andromeda, with major news outlets, and dropped some scraps of information about the new game, largely in the form of vague hints.
Lies drip from your mouth like the blood from my source.
Maybe the most interesting and revealing hint was the fact that your main character, with the last name of Ryder, is going to be part of a family, and at least one family member will play a role in the new game. This contrasts sharply with Commander Shepard, whose family doesn't come into the Mass Effect trilogy in any meaningful way, and depending on your early choices, may not even be alive anymore. This Ryder family angle can go in a bunch of different directions, probably more than I can think of, but I'd like to go over and discuss some of the possibilities. Now, having a family that plays a part of a video game story isn't new. In fact, the most relevant example of a family playing a part in a video game story comes from another BioWare game, Dragon Age 2. In that game, you play as a member of the Hawk family. You've got a mother, brother, and sister, and depending on what class you choose to play as, one of your siblings will die horribly very early in the game. But the surviving sibling can join your party for parts of the rest of the experience. While this is a great example of what you can do with a family in a game that's structured very similar to Mass Effect, I doubt you'll get a direct copy of that storyline for Andromeda, or at the very least, I'd prefer if they did something different. Let's take a look at some of the stuff that we know about Mass Effect Andromeda, starting with the announced trailer from a year ago. The announced trailer featured this guy, who BioWare staffers quickly pointed out isn't the main character, which annoyed me quite a bit, though he does play a part in the game. But with the reveal of a Ryder family, that opens up some intriguing possibilities. There is one quick bit from the N7-Day trailer that might offer some additional insight. Many of you are probably familiar with the dog tag in the bottom left corner with the name Ryder on it. Of course, that was recently confirmed as the protagonist's name. But in the bottom right-hand corner, there is a picture. It's tough to make out exactly what that's a picture of, but what it looks like to me is a family picture, probably featuring a father with two children. We know that you have the option to choose the gender of your Ryder, which could be a choice between brother and sister, or at least that's my current guess. And if that's the case, this picture here could be of the young Ryder brother and sister with their father, who might be that trailer character. This theory makes a bit of sense, and we've even got some evidence for it at this point. We know the character in the announced trailer is N7 designated, and the character you play as is untested. You simply can't get the N7 designation without being tested. The whole process to become an N7 is a test. But the possibility of an N7 Alliance military member leading an expedition to Andromeda and bringing their two children with them makes a lot of sense to me. Of course, where things would go from there is a complete unknown. If I were to continue with this guess, I'd say that at some point very early on, probably before the game even starts, the father gets separated from his children, and his absence is a part of the plot. He could be killed or captured, he could have parted ways with the colonization attempt over a dispute or fundamental difference, or he could be seeking something to put the colonists in a better position. The options here are numerous and can take the story in a number of different directions. As I said though, this is a guess. While it's really one of the only options that has tiny bits of evidence that fits with it, that evidence is entirely vague and circumstantial. Your Ryder might not have a father on the scene. Your Ryder might be an only child, or perhaps only has very young siblings. A number of you have pointed out that family doesn't necessarily mean blood relatives. Perhaps Ryder has an adopted brother or sister, maybe even of alien origin. Maybe Ryder has an Asari half-sister. Maybe Ryder simply grew up with a close-knit group of friends who are like family now. While all of these are certainly possible, I still think it's likely that the Ryder family is a small group of close relatives, not past the grandparent, aunt or uncle, or cousin level, but of course, this is a guess. The larger question is how any Ryder family members will play a role in the game. It's easier to imagine what the role of a much younger or much older family member would be, but what about someone around the same age as the main character? Someone around the same age would have to be as engaged in what's going on as the main character is. Maybe they're even a squad mate. One of the easiest ways for this to work is for you to start with a sister-brother set and have you choose which one you want to play as, which would relegate the other to the squad mate role. An even easier way to deal with this is for you to choose between a sister-brother set and have your opposite die horribly early on in a meaningful way that ends up driving the story. A third option that was floated out there, and I did not think of this myself, I think I might have heard it from Mass Effect Odyssey first, is that there are multiple playable characters, and the story about Mass Effect Andromeda revolves around them. Now, a couple years ago, I would have completely hated this idea, but GTA 5 proved that this can be done in an interesting and meaningful way. But what about the possibility that a Ryder family member plays an antagonist role in the game? I brought this up in a previous video, and the response was mixed. Well, my own response was mixed.
You're mocking me, Earth Clan.
I think ultimately I'd be okay with the idea of a Ryder family antagonist if it's done well. One thing I'd be far less excited about is the idea that your Ryder antagonist is indoctrinated in some way, perhaps badly affected by alien technology, which forces you to intervene and save them from themselves. This has been played out before. I'd be far more interested with the idea that your Ryder sibling or parent simply has very different ideology from you. Perhaps they treat the locals in a very harsh way, or trying to gain total dictatorial power over the Andromeda expedition, which forces you to act against them. One more minor note, and I'm not exactly sure what to make of this, is that GameSpot asked BioWare General Manager Aaryn Flynn if this character was the default female protagonist, and he said, "Well, there's a trick there. I can't get into it, but yes, that's your female protagonist." What does that mean? Well, it could simply mean that there is no default protagonist in the game, and possibly related to the Ryder family topic, you pick general physical features for the family, and the father, brother, sister, whatever, end up looking similar to each other. This could also hint at the multiple playable character theory, but this, like everything else said over the last week and a half by developers, is pretty vague. I'm gonna try not to be annoyed by these little BioWare tricks. They are making it a bit difficult to run a Mass Effect YouTube channel though. But at this point, I'm intrigued about the possibilities of this Ryder family. Certainly, there are a lot of options here. I figured I'd end this video with my official guess or theory on how this is going to play out, some of which I talked about early on. I think that this character is the Ryder father, who came to Andromeda with a son and a daughter who are around the same age. And in the prologue, that father becomes lost or separated from the main Andromeda expedition. You then get to choose between the brother and sister Ryder, but the sibling you don't choose dies horribly at the very beginning of the story, which helps establish enemies, as well as coloring your view of the situation you find your Ryder in. The plot then is a balance between finding your father, getting revenge for your brother or sister, and ensuring that the human race, or Milky Way alien coalition, can even survive in Andromeda. Choosing between these goals will force you to operate in the gray areas that the developers have been talking about. Perhaps the final decision is learning of your father's goals, whether it's acquiring new alien technology at all costs, or seeking to clear out living space for humanity from the natives, or simply trying to gain an alliance with a warring faction, and then you can side with him or against him. Like most of my predictions, this is influenced by something that I'd like. I'm sure many of you have ideas and theories of your own, some of which might be better than this one. Be sure to leave your theory in the comments section. I look forward to reading what everybody thinks. As always, if you like this video, please give it a like. It really helps out the channel. Keep an eye on Minius GC for more Mass Effect videos. But for now...
Have a pleasant day.